Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna do a Resident Evil ranked video from 1 through 7. I haven't put Resident Evil Village yet because by the recording of this project that it took me about 2 to 3 months to make before Resident Evil 8, I wasn't able to put Resident Evil 8 in this list. But if I was gonna put it, I'll probably put it in my number 3 or my number 2 spot, either one of them. But other than that, I hope you guys enjoyed this Resident Evil ranked video.
Resident Evil 6.
Okay then, guess we start the list off with one of the most split Resident Evil games of all time, and the 6th installment definitely shows it. Originally, I backed up on Resident Evil 6, thinking it doesn't look that bad of a game, especially from the shit show that I experienced from its previous sequel, Resident Evil 5. However, this game does not come close to the expectation that I was hoping for. It really is that bad people says it out to be. Its unbalanced gameplay, as well as its complex story that has a total of 4 campaigns, it blends all together in the end where it makes such a mess of a game that it made me have a hard time to actually truly get invested with its story. I'm not saying with these complaints that this game is just full terrible. In all honesty, despite this being not a true Resident Evil game, I would actually recommend this game for anybody who loves action adventures. It's a decent third-person shooter, and it will be actually really fun if you play it once in a while. It does have online and offline feature, so you can basically play this game with your friends if you ever want to have a good time, or just laugh off the game for how stupid it can be, especially the moments where it's just plain silly. That you can easily spend many hours just making fun of this game and its flaws, that it could probably be your favorite game in the series for just that reason alone. By the recording of this video, I played about all 4 of the main campaigns you get, with each length coming in about 8 hours. So yeah, as a whole, this is the longest Resident Evil game. But with this much content that you get, and the story being overcomplicated, I just got tired of playing this game that by the recording of this video when Resident Evil Village came out, I literally bought that on release date and played that instead and completely forgot about Resident Evil 6 about just 1 week after I beat Resident Evil Village. So yeah, this game overall is bad, so it's not a Resident Evil game, and it's definitely not my favorite. But with some of the little things about this game that does actually have some really fun moments, I think overall, it's just a decent experience. Not a good Resident Evil, but a good third-person shooter. After the critical success that was Resident Evil 4, Capcom decided to keep going with its third-person point-of-view formula with its next sequel, Resident Evil 5. Resident Evil 5 continues to go for more of an action-adventure and away from its horror roots from the 3 originals. At first when the game came out, it was praised for its fun gameplay, co-op features, which I can agree is definitely the most funnest RE game I have ever played. And by sales numbers, from the recording of this video, Capcom's top-selling game at number 4 sells almost 7.8 million units. That's pretty impressive for something that isn't as good as I thought. But besides it being heavily praised, why is it that I put Resident Evil 5 so low on my list? Well, Resident Evil is supposed to be horror, meaning it gotta have some horror elements for me to get scared of playing. This game doesn't scare me. In fact, it's more of just stressing me out the whole time of me playing it. This game as a whole is just too much of its action, and of course the AI enemies are just way too overpowered that they have to take that much bullets to take down. And in fact, just by playing this game the whole time, I had to pause every single time to just go think about my life choices. That's how bad Resident Evil 5 is to me. And don't get me started with Sheva, who is your partner in the whole story. If you play this game on solo, she's one of the worst AI companions that can easily destroy your time with this game. I haven't played the co-op for this game, only have I played it on its Mercenaries mode, but even then, I still think as a whole that this 5th installment can be the most tiresome and annoying RE game to play right now, despite it having some good features with its gameplay and co-op. Sorry Resident Evil 5.
Won't you two just die already? You're making me look bad.
Alright, so we made it to the top 5, and with these top 5 titles here is what I believe are either okay or amazingly good Resident Evil games. So it will come to a surprise that I actually didn't mind and do admire Resident Evil 3. RE3, which was released last year in 2020, was a short game no doubt, with very little moments that made this game feel fresh or at all feel like any bit of the same like its original. From the time I recorded this, which about took me 5 hours of playing through and completing this campaign, I can see why. It's rushed, glitchy at times, and it doesn't feel like it's worth $60 by release. By the time I had uploaded this video, I actually bought this game for about 20 bucks on Amazon, and I can see so many problems that this title produced. It's definitely more action-packed, so I did have my times with it very positively, but the fact that you could finish this game in one day really disappointed my overall experience with it. Jill Valentine is an awesome main protagonist, and she's absolutely stunning to watch playing through. So even though I am bashing this game like it's terrible, the new models such as Jill are just absolutely stunning to watch. But despite the new models, such as Jill, who is really amazing, by the way, I just gotta repeat that, it just feels unfinished. Graphic wise, it's stunning, again, like I said, but since this was her first experience after so many years being absent from any future titles, this just puts a sour taste in my mouth, because they could have given her so much screen time that I felt bad that she isn't in any more future games. Who knows, maybe Capcom will probably make a Resident Evil 5 remake with this version of her, and not that stupid blonde that we got from the last game. So overall, this is not a terrible, nor do I say it's amazing. It's an okay experience, and even though I said that this isn't my top favorite, just know that I could skip this title and would recommend you to play the others coming up, as this one isn't really a good first time for anyone who wants to get used to the franchise. So, overall, Resident Evil 3 is in my number 5.
This death wasn't caused by a monster-making virus. It was greed. Human greed.
Resident Evil.
Number 4 in my list will go to Resident Evil, or at least from what I'm playing, the HD remastered from the 1996 original for the PlayStation 1. I haven't fully beat Resident Evil 1, but from what I could gather, it's a really good game. This is such a turnoff for me, as it's the only game in the series where it's full of camera cuts, where everything is, well, pretty much really unique for the most part, with all the others, especially 2 and 3 remakes, where they were just third person and first person experience. But from what it is, this is Resident Evil at its best from playing it so far. I had no problem. It was quiet and ominous. Compared to the others I have played so far, the camera cuts may not be for everyone, but I feel like they did this for a reason. You might not know what's gonna happen in the next scene, and it gives you a fear of wanting to know, not knowing at all. And I actually like how they did that. Even from the beginning, there was a part where I was coming around in the corner, not knowing what's gonna happen next, and then out of nowhere, a zombie came up and scared the living shit out of me. And it was because of these camera cuts is what made me so scared of this game, just from the fucking start of it. This is the first time playing Resident Evil. Oh shit, that scared the fuck out of me. If I had one complaint about this game though, it's the ink ribbons. If you don't know what they are, basically they're the only source of actually saving the game manually. There's no checkpoints whatsoever, so if you die from the last part, then you have to start over all from the beginning if you haven't saved at all. I feel like it was unfair at the time, but you know, for a Resident Evil game, I guess the fear is not only just in the game, but the fact you just can't die at all, and I guess that's what makes it survival horror. So overall, Resident Evil 1, or the HD remaster that I'm playing it right now, is number 4 on my spot. It's good, but it's definitely not my favorite. It's in between. There are things I like about it, and there are also things I hate about it. A lot of people say that this is one of the best Resident Evils ever made. The fact that this is technically my first time actually experiencing an actual Resident Evil, like with all these camera cuts, I'm just not a big fan of it. I prefer more of the third person or first person action. Other than that, I do think this game is fun. It's definitely better than Resident Evil 3. As much as I fucking hated Resident Evil 3.
What?
I'm not saying Resident Evil 1 was even close to even bad. It's in between. It's good and bad. A lot of people might hate me for this, for saying that, but it's true. This game isn't all great. So overall, it's in my number 4 spot.
Grab my hand!
Barry.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Really? Thanks. Leon! Get out of there!
Without hesitation, Resident Evil 2 2019 is one of the best Resident Evil games that not only brought back survival horror, but it also shows that remakes of any old game from the 90s could be possible to recreate for modern players. Yes, if you're confused on the sudden graphic change, this game is a recreation of the PS1 version of Resident Evil 2. As this was my second game from this series alone, it sure was a great time. I did not know too much about these games, so when I found out I had to do puzzles in these games, which completely lacked from the first time I played Resident Evil 4, I guess you can say I was puzzled for not knowing continuing the game felt so difficult. Yeah, for any newcomers, this is not a Resident Evil game to start for your first time. This is mostly for the hardcore gamers who grew up with the PS1 originals. So if you think that once you boot up to the game expecting some Resident Evil 4, 5, or 6 type of gameplay, well, maybe this isn't the game for you. This is survival horror at its best, and it's definitely worth your money. If you want to play any scary game on the PS4, go ahead. Not to mention Mr. X, where I'm not going to explain a lot about him, especially if you want to try this for yourself, but all I would say is, you better hide, or X gonna give it to you. Only complaint I have is that the enemies, mostly the zombies, are complete bullet sponges. That takes them forever to actually kill them. My tip for any of you who want to continue the game without being frustrated of the amount of times you die, try shooting them in the head, and once they're down, knife them with your pocket knife. And then, if they don't get up, then they're dead. Easy as that. Overall, Resident Evil 2 is a fun experience, not only for anybody who want to try these games, but like anybody who grew up with Resident Evil for the PS1. I never grew up with the PS1's versions ever, so as this was my first time experiencing Resident Evil 2, it's a really fun game, and you actually get to know a lot more of these characters. It's a little cheesy, especially since this is like a recreation from the 90s, so expect some really dumb one-liners from each character. So overall, this is a worthy Resident Evil, but there are 2 more Resident Evils that are better than this game.
Let's get out of here.
By being the top-selling RE title at exactly 7.9 million, there's no doubt about it that Resident Evil 7 was the revival of the series that we all wanted. It's intense, fun, very gruesome, and is the scariest RE game we have ever experienced in a long time. Although, kinda wish there was at least a variety on enemies, as these mold creatures would get boring to fight very easily. Seriously. You haven't experienced RE7 to get really bored with these enemies just coming to you, and once you see them, they're scary the first time, but the more time you see them, you kinda wish this game has a little bit more variety on them. And with its new first-person perspective that has never been done in any RE title before, it was truly a breath of fresh air. They also got free DLCs such as Not a Hero, The End of Zoe, as well little mini games even though it's not Mercenaries. It was still a smart of Capcom to give us more variety, giving people more reasons to play this amazing entry in the series. And one of the hardest things that I ever played is Ethan Must Die, where you have to try to survive killing a wave of enemies without taking damage, as one hit can easily kill you. And trust me, I have taken that for granted. So even if you don't like first-person games such as myself, Resident Evil 7 is the reason why I think FPS games should be at least tried once or more times, as this is one of my favorite in the series, in my opinion. However, there is one more game that really shows how awesome this franchise truly is. Oh, and the theme of this game, Go Tell Aunt Rhody, definitely is worth the listen, y'all.
I received special training via a secret organization working under the direct control of the president. I was to assume the responsibility of protecting the new president's family.
There's no other RE game that could compare to the beast that was Resident Evil 4. It's easily one, if not the best game in the series, but it's also the best game of all time. Seriously, look up the best game of the century. Resident Evil 4 will be on that list. Its story, even if it's less complex than the others, is more understandable to digest, where you play as sexy man Leon Kennedy as he's on a mission on saving the president's daughter. While on the way, he discovered a village where a bunch of Spanish cult members are infected with a parasite called Las Plagas, where during the journey, Leon not only has to save the daughter, but also stop the virus from spreading around the world. But other than the story, how is the game? Absolutely fantastic. Its third-person view, which was the first RE to ever went from their old camera cuts to this view, was one of the best changes this series ever needed, especially since most of their recent RE titles that had the old camera cuts were pretty much just mediocre at best from any critics who were just tired of the old camera cut style that RE was known for. But I think for this title alone, it definitely is one of the biggest changes in video game history, not only for Resident Evil fans, but gaming as a whole. Its guns and aiming may be a little clunky in today's standard of gaming, but trust me, get used to this game and it'll be one of the best video games you'll ever play in history. So as a whole, Resident Evil 4 not only is the best RE game, but it's also the most revolutionary games of all time. I can't say that enough. Resident Evil 4 is the best game, in my opinion, in the RE series.
Hasta luego.
Oh man, I almost forgot. You wanna know another reason why Resident Evil 4 is the best? Have you ever heard this before?